Nathan Reed woke to the feeling of being watched. Not the vague unease of a bad dream, something real, something close. He lay perfectly still in his sleeping bag, heart pounding, eyes adjusting to the darkness inside his tent. The Himalayas at 14,000 feet, December, -20 outside. He was alone, or he should have been. Then he saw them. Two pale green eyes watching him through the mesh window of his tent, unblinking, silent, 3 feet away. Nathan stopped breathing. He knew those eyes. Every wildlife photographer in the world dreamed of seeing those eyes. A snow leopard, the ghost of the mountains, one of the rarest, most elusive predators on Earth, and it was staring directly at him. Snow leopards don't approach humans. In 100 years of research, there are almost no documented cases of a snow leopard willingly coming near a person. They are shadows. They watch from ridges a mile away. They vanish the moment they sense human presence. They are called ghosts for a reason. But this one wasn't running. This one was sitting in the snow outside Nathan's tent, watching, waiting. Nathan was 41 years old, a wildlife photographer from Vermont who had spent the last 18 years chasing impossible shots in impossible places. He had photographed polar bears in the Arctic, jaguars in the Amazon, tigers in India. But a snow leopard, a wild snow leopard up close, that was the one image he had never captured. No one had, until now. His camera was 6 inches from his hand. One shot, that's all he needed. One photograph that would define his career. One image that would appear in every wildlife publication on Earth. Slowly, so slowly, Nathan reached for the camera. The snow leopard didn't move. His fingers touched the cold metal. The snow leopard tilted its head. Nathan raised the camera toward the mesh window. And then the leopard did something that made him freeze. She turned away from him and looked back over her shoulder, towards something in the rocks, something Nathan couldn't see, something she wanted him to follow. Nathan lowered the camera. This wasn't hunting behavior. This wasn't territorial display. This was something else. The snow leopard looked at him again, then back at the rocks, then at him. She's showing me something. The thought seemed insane. Snow leopards don't communicate with humans. They don't ask for help. They don't lead strangers to hidden places. But Nathan had spent 18 years reading animal behavior, and everything about this leopard said the same thing. Follow me. Nathan's rational mind screamed at him to stay in the tent. It was -20 degrees. He was alone at 14,000 feet. His guide had left 2 days ago to bring supplies from the village below. No one knew exactly where he was camped. If something happened to him out there, a fall, an injury, hypothermia, no one would find him in time. He looked at the snow leopard. She was still waiting, patient, silent. Her breath made small clouds in the frozen air. Nathan made a decision that defied every survival rule he knew. He unzipped his tent and stepped out into the Himalayan dawn. The snow leopard moved the moment Nathan emerged, not running, walking. She would travel 20 feet, then stop and look back at him, making sure he was following. Then she would continue. Nathan followed. Across frozen scree fields, around massive boulders crusted with ice, through snow that came up to his knees. His lungs burned in the thin air. His face went numb within minutes. But he kept following. The leopard led him for almost 40 minutes, deeper into the mountains, further from his tent, further from any hope of rescue if something went wrong. Then she stopped. The cave entrance was barely visible, a dark gap in the gray rock, half hidden by an overhang of snow. Nathan would have walked past it 100 times without noticing. The snow leopard looked at him one last time. Then she slipped inside. Nathan stood in the snow, breathing hard. Every instinct told him not to enter. A snow leopard's den, the most sacred, protected space in her world. If she had cubs in there, approaching could trigger an attack. Snow leopards have been known to kill animals 3 times their size when defending their young. but she had led him here. She had waited for him. She had shown him the way. Nathan crouched down and crawled into the darkness. Nathan's headlamp illuminated the small cave, and his heart broke. The snow leopard lay against the far wall, her pale gray fur almost invisible against the stone. Pressed against her body were two cubs, maybe 3 months old, small, fuzzy, perfect. One of them was dead. Nathan could see it immediately. The stillness, the unnatural angle, the way the mother kept nudging it with her nose, trying to wake it up. The other cub was alive, but barely. It lay separate from its mother, shivering violently, too weak to nurse, too weak to move closer to her warmth. Its eyes were half closed, its breathing was shallow and rapid. It was dying. Nathan looked at the mother. She looked back at him, and in that moment, he understood everything. She hadn't led him here to attack him. She had led him here because she had no other choice. Her cubs were dying. One was already gone, and the other, the last living piece of herself, was slipping away. She had watched him for days, observed him from ridges and shadows, the way snow leopards do. She had seen him move through the mountains with care. She had seen him leave food scraps but attracted marmots. She had seen him sit quietly for hours, never chasing, never hunting. And when her world fell apart, when death came for her children, she made a decision that went against every instinct in her body. She asked a human for help. Nathan didn't hesitate. He stripped off his outer jacket and crawled slowly, so slowly, toward the dying cub. The mother didn't move. She watched his every motion with those pale green eyes, but she didn't growl, didn't attack. She let him approach her child. The cub was cold, colder than anything Nathan had ever touched. Its body temperature had dropped so low that it had stopped shivering, the final stage before death. Nathan wrapped the cub in his jacket. Then he opened his base layer and pressed the tiny body against his bare chest. The cold was shocking, like holding ice against his heart. But he held on. The mother made a sound, soft, low, not a growl, something else. Nathan had recorded thousands of animal vocalizations in his career. He had never heard a snow leopard make this sound. It sounded like gratitude. Nathan couldn't leave. Moving the cub now, in its fragile state, across 40 minutes of frozen terrain, it would die before they reached the tent. So he stayed. In a snow leopard's den, through the night, with a dying cub against his chest, and a wild predator 3 feet away. He didn't sleep. Neither did she. They watched each other through the long Himalayan darkness. Predator and human. Mother and stranger. 2 beings who should never have trusted each other. Sharing a cave, sharing a vigil, waiting to see if the smallest one would live. Around midnight, the cub began to warm. Nathan felt it against his skin, a gradual shift from cold to cool to something approaching life. The cub stirred, made a tiny sound, opened its eyes for the first time since Nathan had found it. Nathan looked at the mother. She was staring at her cub, at the small face peeking out from Nathan's jacket. Alive. Still alive. At first light, Nathan made a decision. The cub was warm now, stable, but it needed something he couldn't give it. It needed its mother. He crawled toward the snow leopard, the cub still inside his jacket. She tensed. For the first time since he entered the cave, he saw her muscles coil. Nathan stopped. "I'm giving her back," he whispered. "That's all. I'm giving her back to you." He didn't know if she understood his words, but she understood something. Her body relaxed. Nathan placed the cub gently against its mother's belly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cub found what it was looking for. It began to nurse. The mother's eyes closed, her head lowered to the stone floor, and for the first time in what must have been days, she rested. Nathan stayed until the cub had finished nursing. until its belly was round and its breathing was steady, until it had curled against its mother and fallen asleep. Then he crawled backward out of the cave, into the frozen Himalayan morning, into a world that would never believe what had happened. At the entrance, he looked back. The mother was watching him. Those pale green eyes, the same eyes that had woken him in the darkness. She blinked, slowly, deliberately, the way cats do when they trust someone. Nathan blinked back. Then he turned and walked away. Nathan made it back to his tent just as the sun cleared the peaks. He was hypothermic. His fingers were white with frostbite. He hadn't eaten in 18 hours. But he was alive. And somewhere in the mountains behind him, a snow leopard cub was alive too. His guide found him 6 hours later, delirious from cold and exhaustion. Nathan tried to explain what had happened: the eyes in the dark, the silent walk, the cave, the cub, the night spent 3 feet from a wild snow leopard. His guide listened. Then he shook his head. "Snow leopards don't do that," he said. "They don't approach humans. They don't ask for help." Nathan didn't argue. He knew what he had seen. He knew what had happened. And he knew that some truths don't need to be believed to be real. 6 months later, Nathan returned. He told himself it was for work, a new assignment, a different angle, more photographs of the mountains he had grown to love. But he knew why he was really there. He had to know if she survived, if they survived. For 3 weeks he searched, hiked ridges, scanned cliff faces, set up camera traps in locations where snow leopards had been spotted. Nothing. The ghost of the mountains had disappeared again. On his last day, Nathan climbed to a ridge overlooking the valley where he had camped 6 months before. He sat on a rock, looked out at the peaks, and accepted that some stories don't have endings. Some connections exist for a single night and then dissolve into the wild like morning mist. Then he felt it again, the feeling of being watched. Nathan turned slowly. 50 meters away, on a rock outcrop that overlooked his position, sat a snow leopard. Her pale gray fur rippled in the wind. Her green eyes were fixed on him. And beside her, healthy, strong, almost fully grown, sat a juvenile snow leopard. The cub. His cub. Nathan didn't reach for his camera. For the first time in 18 years, he didn't want a photograph. He just wanted to see. The mother and cub watched him for almost a minute. Then the mother did something that Nathan would remember until his last breath. She lowered her head, just slightly, just for a moment. A gesture that meant nothing in scientific literature, a gesture that meant everything to a man who had spent a night in a cave holding a dying cub against his heart. Then she turned. Her cub followed. And together, they disappeared over the ridge. Ghosts again. Gone. Nathan sat on that rock for a long time. The sun moved across the sky. The shadows lengthened. And somewhere in those vast, silent mountains, a mother and her child continued their ancient journey through a world that had almost taken everything from them. People asked Nathan later why he did it, why he followed a wild predator into the unknown, why he risked hypothermia, frostbite, death, why he spent a night in a cave with an animal that could have killed him with a single swipe. He never knew how to answer. The truth was too simple, too strange. A mother had asked him for help, not with words, with eyes, with patience, with a trust that defied everything science said was possible. And he had answered, not because he was brave, not because he was special, but because some requests can't be ignored. Some eyes can't be looked away from. Some nights are meant to change us forever. In the end, Nathan never published photographs from that night. He had none. The greatest encounter of his career existed only in his memory. And maybe that was exactly where it belonged. Some moments aren't meant to be captured. Some moments are meant to be lived. And some connections, forged in silence, sealed in trust, are too sacred to share with anyone except the mountains that witness them. The snow leopard is still called the ghost of the mountains, but Nathan knows better now. Ghosts don't ask for help. Ghosts don't trust. Ghosts don't return 6 months later to show you that your sacrifice mattered. She wasn't a ghost. She was a mother. And on the coldest night of his life, in a cave at 14,000 feet, Nathan learned what that word really means.